Well, if you didn't know, sports are back. Sports are back a little bit, at least for now. I've been watching a lot of hockey. And
if you're a cardboard cutout, today's your day.
They're living the life. Free.
If I died right now, I would want to come back as a cardboard cutout. So that way I can go to concerts, I can go to
baseball games.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to the football season, whatever that might be. It is coming.
Is it coming in the fall or the spring?
And it reminds me of one of my favorite movies. Okay, one of my favorite movies, Rudy. It's like number 3 on my list. I'm going to show you a cool video right now.
Seconds remaining. It'll be all over here at Notre Dame Stadium. Off to our left, I'm starting to pick up the chant from the Notre Dame student.
So that's a great scene, but it's not my favorite. My favorite scene is when Rudy and the janitor are having a conversation. And Rudy's going to quit the team. That's what he's saying. I'm giving you all the spoilers. The movie's like probably 40 years old at this point, so it's on you if you haven't seen it yet. They have this point of conflict, and Rudy is telling the janitor that he's going to quit the team. That he's going to quit playing for Notre Dame, he says. And the janitor looks at him and he's like, "What are you, nuts?" He doesn't say that. He says, "You're 5'0" 100 nothing. And you've hung in with the best college football team in the land for 2 years. And you're going to walk out of here with a degree from the University of Notre Dame. And if you haven't proved, and you don't have to prove nothing to nobody except yourself. And if you haven't done that by now, it ain't going to never happen." And then what ends up happening is Rudy says, he apologizes and says, "I'm sorry that I've never gotten you to see a game in this stadium." And the janitor says, "I've seen too many games." Because he was once a player. And Rudy didn't know that. There was something that Rudy didn't know that the janitor did know. There was perspective that the janitor did have that he was able to share. It changed how Rudy thought, changed how Rudy felt, and it actually ended up changing what he was doing.
That's just a hint of what we're talking about today.
We're talking a little bit about conflict, pride, and humility, and what Jesus has to say about them. And by the way, if you didn't know, my name is Sam.
And I'm Michael. And before we get into anything too crazy, we just wanted to let you know we have some awesome events throughout the summer. We've already had a couple of hangouts with grades. We've had a couple of summer house parties.
Yes.
We got some more coming up with Breakaway.
Yes, we have one today. Breakaway students, if you're watching this on Sunday morning, we have it today from 1 to 3. Make sure you register for 7th grade.
And then we have one tonight for Edge students out in Rochester.
Let's go. And then we have one for 8th graders. We didn't forget about you. On Friday, this coming Friday, so make sure you sign up. So now tension and arguments and conflict, they're not just part of movies or the TV shows you binge at home, but they're a part of our lives. And that looks, I think for all of us, it looks a little bit different.
Yeah, and I know for me, y'all know how much I love Flint. And I remember one time, not too long ago, I got into a full-blown argument with somebody because they were trash-talking Flint.
Okay.
Like, seriously, they were. Like, they were upset that we would ever build a little mini freeway in Flint. It was $475, and then they were trying to spend money to help fix it because it was falling apart. And they were angry that any state money would be used to help Flint. And I was like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And I think most of my arguments, though, usually start because I think I know more than somebody else, right? Or I've experienced more than somebody else. And I think I'm smarter, or I'm wiser in that subject.
So when we think we're right, it motivates our thoughts and it motivates our actions. When we think we're better than someone, or maybe even when we think we deserve more than we're getting. So maybe for you feel like you're the best athlete on your team, so you think you should get the most playing time or the best opportunities, or you're the best musician in your band, so you should get first chair. You're the smartest kid in class, so you should get the biggest reward. Or maybe you're the best kid at home, right? Like, your brother is not good, your sister is not good. You're the good kid, so you should get more gifts. Birthdays, Christmas, the works. Even just random gifts you should get because you're the best kid. Were you the best kid?
Yes.
Well, I was too. But it's interesting because anytime we feel like we're better than someone else, it reveals an issue that's within us, right? So if you think about it like this, This past weekend, I had a couple of friends over, family friends, and I was in charge of prepping the food. So I had done all the grocery shopping, got some lunch meat for our lunch and some sandwich material, and we go to get everything ready. And I make my sandwich and eat it, and then one of my buddies gets it, and he goes to put some cheese on his sandwich, and it's moldy. And then he goes to put some chicken on his sandwich, that it's like the little cut up cold chicken, and it's moldy.
What the heck?
And he's like, "Can I even trust you, Sam?" And I was like, he's one of my best friends, and it was still slightly embarrassing. Like, I was like, you gotta be kidding me. How did this happen? But it's because, so I had bought stuff ahead of time, but I was using the stuff that we hadn't used yet. We had already had in our fridge. Because I looked at the expiration date, and it was like in a month or two, and I'm like, we're good to go. What I didn't know is that a lot of that stuff is only supposed to last 7 days after you open it. I didn't know that, guys. It's a lesson for you to learn. And here's how it applies. It's that I looked at the expiration date. I didn't open it up to look what was underneath. And so when we feel like we're better than someone else, it's sometimes that is like the opening up of what's underneath, of what's within.
Yeah, I just realized you did the cooking for the 6th grade cookout or 6th grade hangout the other day. Did you check the hot dog? The Glizzies. Did you check the hot dog?
You guys all right? You guys doing all right?
Were they moldy?
I didn't eat one, so
that's not a good sign. Anyway, speaking of food, there's a lot of stories in the Bible, especially with Jesus, that involve some form of food or hanging out or eating with people. This was a kind of a thing that they did a lot. Actually, this is how the first church started, was just a bunch of people hanging together, eating, sharing their lives together. So there's this story in Luke 14, 8 through 11, where Jesus talks about a dinner feast, and he's trying to teach all of us a little bit about humility. So Jesus tells this story of someone who was having a dinner party, and basically what he said is that those who tried to sit at the honorable seats, or the most honored seats, would actually be put to the end of the table. But those who took the least honorable seats would be in turn given the honorable seats. Now, this might not mean much to us, but where you sat at a dinner table showed how important you were, either to everybody or at least to the host of the party.
Yeah.
Right? So he was saying we should be willing to give up the most honorable place. Instead of being number one or showing how great we are or better we are, he says to give that up.
Yep.
Here's the story.
It says, when someone invites you to a wedding feast, do not take the place of honor, for a person more distinguished than you may have been invited. If so, the host who invited both of you will come and say to you, give this person your seat. Then, humiliated, you will have to take the least important place. But when you are invited, take the lowest place, so that when your host comes, he will say to you, friend, move up to a better place. Then you will be honored in the presence of all the other guests. For all those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted.
So humility means that we put others first.
Yeah.
Right? We put others above us. We don't assume we're the smartest in the room. Right? We don't assume that we're the best in the room. I know.
Why do you assume you're the smartest in the room?
This actually goes against most of what our culture is about. And we're not the first culture to experience that, but we love to show how good we are at certain things, right? And we want to show that we're the best at certain things, and we can often brag about the things that we're good at and show off about it. Whereas here, like, Jesus is showing the opposite. He's like, hey, you can take that spot if you want, but you're not going to keep it because you're not being humble, right? But if you take that low spot, then you're going to be honored if you let others come first.
Yeah, I have a buddy from a few years ago. He was like the best electric guitar player, and he was really good at keys and singing. Super talented dude. Probably one of the best electric music people I've ever known. He wasn't cocky about it at all. He was like the most humble person. He had like this calm, gentle spirit about him that drew me in. And I ended up talking with him. We became close friends, and he kind of took me under his wing in a lot of ways and shepherded me almost. And one of the things that I think I learned the most from him was this idea of humility that Jesus is talking about, because he could have been overconfident. He could have put himself out there and talked and been in your face about how talented he was, but he wasn't that. And I think that's exactly what Jesus is talking about here. And it's something that made me, I believe, more like Jesus. With our humility, when we're humble, we can actually draw people closer to Jesus and teach them how to be more like him.
Yeah, I think there's a huge difference between being cocky and being confident.
Yep.
Because the people that I want to be around and the people I'm impressed with are not the people who are full of themselves, and not the people, and I'm saying that about me too. When I'm like super cocky and I push people out of the way, that shows itself as being like the opposite of humble. But the people I'm impressed by are the people who are confident, and they're confident in themselves, but they don't have to show it, and they don't have to rub it in your face. They don't always have to prove that they're the smartest person, or they're the best person. So Jesus calls us to be humble because what it does is it allows space for other people. Sometimes I think like I can't see other people because I'm so focused on me. Because I'm the most important in the room. I'm the smartest in this conversation. I have the best belief system, right? I have the best political views or whatever. Like I put myself in front and center when I walk into every conversation. And really it's almost like I fill the room and I can't see anybody else. So what Jesus is saying here, we let other people fill that space and we pull ourselves to the back. It doesn't mean we be stepped on, right? We still have our confidence because we know what we have in Christ and what we've been given. But we don't place ourselves in the highest seat. That's one of the things that I love about Kensington, or when I first came here, is that you got Dave, you got Steve, you got these people who started it all, and you would think with a church that big, they would be full of themselves. But I'll never forget one of my first weeks here, they said, oh, by the way, working here at Kensington, we are supposed to park in the very, very, very back. Right, that's our job, is to park in the furthest spots so that other people can have our spots instead of having our reserved for staff parking. We take the worst spots, and even Dave and Steve still do that. Like they'll take the worst spots so that other people can have the better spots.
That's awesome. I think that when we're humble and when we show humility, very practically allows our relationships to be better. But more than that, I think it glorifies God more, because when we're doing that, when we're elevating others, we're showing them value, we're giving them value, which is exactly what Jesus does. Genesis, in the first book of the Bible, in the first chapter of the Bible, it says that we were all made in the image of God. So I almost think about this idea of humility and how when we are humble, and we're elevating others, we're elevating and promoting and valuing the image of God in other people. So we're glorifying him, which is a beautiful and powerful thing. So to help us practice humility this week, for you to practice humility this week, this is what I want you to do. When you're at home, go online, find somebody that you can learn something from. Try something new, learn something from someone, listen to someone. It might not sound like a big deal, but it's the practice, it's the exercise of saying, hey, there's things I'm not good at, there's things that I don't know. So it's allowing ourselves to posture ourselves with humility.
Yeah, and ask yourself this question, like, what would change in my life if I allowed others to come first? Especially in areas that I don't want them to. Or what? How would that affect the relationships in my life? Like seriously, if your parents came home and you asked them about their day before they asked you about your day, what would that do? Like if you asked your sister, you asked your brother, you showed interest in them first. You can talk about yours later. But if you asked them and you elevated them to the honored seat in your discussion, how would that affect your family?
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so answer these questions. Really do it. Like, make it happen. You can do it. We believe in you. But then ask this as well, and it might be a little bit more uncomfortable, but in what way do you see yourself better than others? For me, and some of you guys might laugh at this, some of you guys might not know this, especially incoming 6th graders, but I had a little mini rap career, and I thought that I was so good. So good. I know that some of you listen to your boy NF, and there was a minute where we were kind of on the same level, and then he blew up and I went a different direction with my life, and I felt like I was better than him. And sometimes, guys, in full transparency, sometimes I still feel that way.
Sam F.
And we want you to think about that question too, because it does reveal that thing that's within us that might need to be restored or might need to be healed or worked on by the Holy Spirit. And so that's just the reality, that it is a journey of moving from pride to humility. But that's what Jesus is all about. He's all about restoration and bringing us to become more like him. So we are so glad that you guys joined us today, and we hope that you have a good one. Make sure you sign up for our events that are upcoming, and we will see you soon.
Bye. And that's a little bit about what we're talking today.
Does
Well,
it?
I always think I know more than everybody else.
Cozy binge, not just. Come on, how hard is this? It's not very hard. It's the new strategy for the
quarantine.
quarantine. That's what they call it in Nebraska.
Quarantine.